This just in. Breaking news, our top story tonight, the US stock market takes a serious stumble with the Dow Jones dropping 2,000 points in a single day. I can't recall seeing the stock market get hit like this since the Great Recession of February 24th, 2020, and February 26th, 2020. And actually, now that I think about it, also tonight, global fears of the coronavirus intensify as thousands more are infected, hundreds are dead, and Ted Cruz has been walled off from society. At least there's a little bit of good news today. Next up, Joe Biden sends out a strong message on the campaign trail.
We cannot get reelected. We cannot win this reelection.
You tell him, Joe. And finally tonight, the cryptocurrency markets are down significantly. It looks like today's just going to be jokes about people losing money and dying. All of this and more tonight on News. Before we jump into these topics, I want to talk a little bit about what I've been up to and what my plans are moving forward. So obviously over the last few years, I've primarily made poker content with a bit of cryptocurrency content as well. And I reached a point where I just wasn't really interested in those topics anymore. I had a lot of fun with the videos that we made there, and there were a lot of great times that were had. But I need to be working on things that I'm passionate about and I'm interested in, because frankly, at some point, it's just not worth grinding stuff just so that people can see pocket tens. After thinking things over for a while, I want to get into a nice rhythm making videos on general world topics, either world news or politics or the markets or whatever is happening. I want to be able to talk about it and not really be pigeonholed into a specific genre. So because of that, I'm going to be doing it all here on this channel. The plan is now to post regularly here, so we're going to have a lot of different videos coming up. I've got a good system in place with a great team of people that I'm looking forward to working with, and I hope you guys join me for the ride. With that out of the way, let's talk about some sad shit. If you have money and you had that money in something, well, you probably did pretty bad today. In fact, this is the worst day that the Dow Jones has had ever. All right, that sentence might be a little bit misleading. It might have been the largest amount it has dropped in one day, but as a percentage, today didn't actually even crack the top 10. You can see here, this is the list of the 10 worst days in the history of the Dow Jones. In fact, in '87, it lost 23% of its entire value in just a single day. Today's day was bad, but it wasn't top 10. It was 11th. Whenever we see markets get hit like this, people want to peg down what exactly happened to trigger it. And there's always a lot of things going on in the market, but there are a couple ideas that are important to know. First off, US Treasury yields dropped again substantially over the weekend, and they've actually hit some all-time lows. Treasury yield is the interest rate the US government takes to borrow money. So when it's really low, it's basically saying that they're not willing to pay very much. And typically that's indicative of a negative outlook for the total market. Russia didn't flinch and has said it will continue to ramp up production. So what happens when overwhelming supply hits the same amount of demand? Right. Ownage. Also at play, and I'm sure this is the story more people are interested in and have been following, the outbreak of COVID-19 has started to heat up on a global scale, with many countries seeing significant day-over-day increases. Countries like Italy, Iran, and South Korea have been some of the most hard hit, but also countries like the US are starting to finally see some cases now that they're actually testing. With things getting hit this hard, you might be thinking maybe now is the time to buy some undervalued assets. And here's the thing, if you're a seasoned trader who knows what's going on, maybe it's time to make some moves. But overall, in the long run, the stock market tends to go up in value. And so because of that, I think if you don't have any real insight on the way these things work, you should probably stick to just having a balanced portfolio and hoping things go up in the long run. But there are people with the expertise and the knowledge to make great plays. People like Eric Trump. Eric Trump tweeted this sage wisdom just 9 days ago. In my opinion, it's a great time to buy stocks or into your 401k. I would be all in. Let's see if I'm right.
He wasn't.
So you can try and time the market, and if things go low enough, I'll probably re-up a bit, as yes, people tend to panic and oversell in some of these spots. But in the long run, you should mainly just be looking for a balanced strategy and try and make yourself more market neutral if you're able to. I'm also not a financial advisor. I'm just some guy on the internet, so take it with a grain of salt. Well, that might be my opinion, but what we need here, we need some expert financial figures to get in there with some great takes to really save the day. Let's see what we got.
Think about how the world would be if you tried to
quarantine everybody because of the generic type flu. Now, I'm not saying this is the generic type flu, but maybe we'd be just better off if we gave it to everybody, and then in a month it would be over, because the mortality rate of this probably isn't going to be any different if we did it that way than the long-term picture. But the difference is we're wreaking havoc on global and domestic economy.
Great idea. Let's give everyone COVID-19. Let's just go out there and get it ourselves. If we do that, we can get this all over with, except for the fact that 5% of people or so are going to need machines to breathe. So I'm sure we've got millions of those on hand. And then hospitals, definitely got plenty of those ready to go. Plenty of space for everyone, and the healthcare is going to be great. I think that this just makes sense. It'll have, the least possible casualties for the Dow Jones. That's right, you tree-hugging snowflake millennials. It's time to suck it up and sacrifice grandma for the betterment of the S&P 500. Also, can we please stop with the "this is just the flu" thing? And I'm not saying people aren't overreacting. People definitely are. You can't buy toilet paper at the store anymore. But that does not mean it is the flu. Correlating those things to try and make it sound better is not something that you should be doing. One of them kills 2% of people. One of them kills 0.1% of people. There's a roughly 20x difference. Why can't people see that? Let's get a little more sage wisdom from these market gurus.
Long run investors, absolutely. And Carl, regarding the containment issue, I will still argue to you that this is contained.
That's right. Despite there being large percentage increases of the amount of the population that have it day over day and a total lack of testing in many areas, I can confidently say that I really want that to be true. If I close my eyes and I can't see the coronavirus can't see me. This is fine. Putting aside these experts for a moment, I want to talk about the way that Donald Trump is handling the situation. And it's tough in today's climate. Everything you say is going to be highly analyzed politically from one side or the other. You say something good about the other team, you're a Republican or a Democrat or whatever it's supposed to be. But how has Trump been handling this situation? And can we look at this pragmatically? Is this the right way to handle it? Trump tweeted today, so last year 37,000 Americans died from the common flu. It averages between 27 and 70,000 per year. Nothing is shut down. Life and the economy go on. At this moment, there are 546 confirmed cases of coronavirus with 22 deaths. Think about that. And there is some merit to what he's saying. The flu does kill a lot of people every year, and it is relatively small compared to the flu at this moment. But there is a degree of not taking this serious enough that I think is really showing from a world leader. Obviously, Trump does not want people to freak out, because if he does, the market gets hammered. And if the market gets hammered, he's less likely to win re-election. So he's trying to make people feel more at ease and trying to avoid the stock market crashing. But there's a point where I think it's a bit irresponsible to the people. Sure, the coronavirus is relatively small. Is at a relatively small scale here compared to the flu. But that doesn't mean it has to stay that way. What happens if this thing grows by 10 to 20% every day? Well, there could come a time in the not so far away future where 100,000 Americans are infected. And then what happens to hospitals? What happens to the older demographic? What happens to people that need ventilators in order to breathe? There are so many things that can happen from here that I feel like this tweet doesn't really have the caution that it should have when talking about something that could really become a worldwide pandemic. He's also spent a lot of time complaining about the fake news media and the Democrats trying to get you all riled up about coronavirus. But I think it would be a little more appropriate to at least mention this could break out into something much larger, and that we should be taking the right steps right now to mitigate what happens. We should also be preparing for the worst. We should be investing into having more hospital space. We should have more testing available for people. We should have more ventilators or whatever it is that people need to breathe when they do contract coronavirus and have those issues. I think that some, admittance that this could become worse and preparing doesn't show that you're weak. On this subject, Nate Silver had a very interesting tweet yesterday that I want to talk about. He tweeted, "I don't get why prediction markets think there's a 60% chance of a recession this year, but that Trump is a 55% favorite for re-election. One of those forecasts is almost certainly wrong." I thought that was an interesting take yesterday when I read it, because when we think about Trump and we think about what people like about Trump, One of the big things is the economy. They think that he helps the stock market. He thinks that it's bullish for business and that people can make money with him as president. So he's going to be more closely tied to that than maybe some other presidents would be. Although presidents are always at least somewhat, and probably unfairly so, tied to the stock market, Trump's will be a particularly large correlation. And now you can see even more of the reason why Trump does not want people to panic and the stock market to go down. It actually hurts his chance of becoming president for his second term. So what Nate's saying here is, how can Trump be a favorite to win, but we also have a recession as a favorite to happen? How can those two things coexist? And what we saw today was a sharp decline in Trump's chance of winning the presidency, and this is reflected by the market tumbling. Just a few days ago, Trump was something like 62% to win the general election. Now, as of today, on Pinnacle, you can see that he's roughly something more like 53%. So he's taken about a 9-ish% drop over just one day, and it has to be because of the things that have happened over that day. So we can see when the economy takes a hit, Trump's chance to win immediately drops. These two things are very tied together, which is certainly an interesting correlation. With our current president being quite old and both Democratic challengers also being quite old, you might have to wonder, if the coronavirus mainly hits old people hard, what could potentially happen to all of our candidates? And that's where Tulsi Gabbard steps in. That's right, Tulsi Gabbard is still in the race with her new slogan, "Dream big, fight hard, win by default." Or maybe it's Tulsi Gabbard, I have a future. Gabbard 2020, America's choice. Also your only choice. Or Gab, get America breathing. Tulsi Gabbard 2020. Wait him out. Tulsi Gabbard, I'm just trying to be on the Joe Rogan podcast one more time, 2020. My immune system works as hard as I do. Tulsi Gabbard, inspired, not expired. That's it for today, and if you want daily videos here on the channel, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and stop touching your face. The coronavirus is out there. Wait. Italy just quarantined the entire country? But we finished the video. We'll just cover it tomorrow. They're not going anywhere.